Within the past year, the page Cancel Woodward has started blowing up on Instagram.
DiGi Band.
Out here in Amish, smoking big joints in Amish.
I would say that overall, this is just like a funny page that probably could have existed at like any time that Woodward's been around. It's probably just thriving now because of the internet. However, the Instagram page blew up super quick, and the name will make you think that people actually want to cancel Woodward. However, I feel like in reality, a lot of skaters have just become disenfranchised with the camp as a whole. So does anyone actually want to cancel Woodward? Probably not. But has the camp gotten worse? I'd say it might have. So way back in its beginnings, Woodward was originally a gymnastics camp, and it wasn't until Gary Ream, the current owner, sort of bought it over around the 80s and turned it into what we know it as today. So Gary Ream is a Woodward, Pennsylvania local. He said he grew up around like 5-ish miles from the area, ended up going to Penn State, became a business grad. I saw an ad somewhere in like a newspaper that Woodward was failing as it is, pretty much just a gymnastics camp with a lot of construction projects going on. So he decided to take it over. And one of the first things he did to like take around this business was he saw the rise of BMX racing out in places like Southern California, and decided to bring it over to the camp, mainly because he didn't want to compete with universities and other places that had like gymnastics camps and things along those lines. So BMX racing had very little competition, so it could have like easily made the camp grow, which it definitely did. But then he started seeing the BMX freestyle kids, and Gary was very inspired by the mentality these kids have to like discover the world around them and just like be free. And then according to Gary's words, then came along a board with 4 wheels. He said this board with 4 wheels is gonna change the world. Now Gary himself was not a skateboarder, but it was clear to us as skateboarders that he really understood the mentality that skateboarders had. And this respect that he like gave the kids really helped to create the Woodward experience. And the Woodward experience was also, as Gary described, a place where kids could come and explore, a place away from their parents, just let their passions thrive. So he sort of created this dreamland that we know today.
Camp Woodward. Real kids and unreal summer.
The only sport that really protects itself as a brand is skateboarding. Now Gary Ream was a businessman, not a skateboarder. So obviously he had the goal to make money, but it's clear with quotes like this that he kept the mentality and respect of the skateboarders in mind.
That was, what was the term? Awesome. No, that's not cool. What's cool?
His riding really stokes me.
That's not cool either.
Yeah, it is.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, it is, Gary. Say.
Stokes? No, that's not cool.
Yeah, it is. His riding really stokes me.
No, rad.
Oh, that too. That was rad, yeah.
So when he started bringing in corporate sponsorships like PlayStation and Target, he had to do it in a way where they would become like sort of initiated to like the skateboarders' family without like disrespecting them. And that was key to growing the business side of Woodward while keeping it a place that skaters felt comfortable going. That being said, I'm sure there's always been people who are, or skaters specifically, who are anti-Woodward for its, I guess, sort of athletic training mentality. This can be seen later in around 1995 when the first X Games happened, and Gary decided to construct Lie 8, which still stands at Woodward today, as one of the biggest indoor skate parks. And this is the skate park where they really brought in the foam pits and the resi ramps so that skaters could literally sort of train like gymnasts. And I think the idea for Cancel Woodward is a pretty recent idea, because obviously Gary's been in charge for a while. So it was around in 2009 to 2011 when he started selling some ownership to a company known as Powder, which originally was the company that ran Salt Lake City, Utah. And Powder Corp over the years has steadily become a very large decision maker in the way that Camp Woodward is ran. A lot of you guys are definitely familiar with the Camp Woodward show. So when Gary first pitched this idea, it actually aired on Fuel TV, not YouTube, like a lot of you know it today. And I'm pretty sure it was seasons 1 through 5 that were on Fuel TV. And those seasons, I remember vividly like downloading on the iTunes store and watching seasons 3, 4, and 5. Those seasons really made me like fall in love with the camp. I binge watched all of them before I ever visited, and it really seemed like when Camp Woodward the show was on TV, it was a lot more unscripted. It was a lot smoother. It was like marketing without really trying to be marketing in a sense. Whereas I feel like when it shifted to YouTube, it's obviously scripted and it doesn't feel as genuine as it once did. So when I first attended Woodward as a camper in 2013, I had this expectation that I built up in my head that it was gonna be like the greatest place ever. And as a 13-year-old skater who went to skate parks at the time, like once every 2 months, it was honestly one of the best weeks of my life, and it lived up to almost every expectation I built in my head about what the camp was gonna be. This was back when Gary was still running a lot of the camp. I actually saw him walking around a couple times while I visited this week. However, it seems like as Powder took over Camp Woodward, it sort of switched from Gary using the show to show what camp really is about to Powder using the show as a marketing scheme where they cared more about getting campers to spend money to come to camp, whereas it seems like Gary wanted campers to come and experience camp, which is a very big difference. It seems as if Powder is spending more of their time trying to lure you into camp, where Gary was trying to make sure that when you came, you had a good experience and wanted to come back. So building loyal customers versus acquiring customers is like the big difference. So over time, I feel as Woodward has lost its charm in a sense. One example this can probably be seen is how Woodward now markets the skateboard camp as designed by Ryan Sheckler. And I have no idea what this means. I don't think anyone knows what this means, because the camp, I'm sure, has almost no elements besides maybe Ryan Sheckler's signature on some things. Why would they do this? Why would they try to say it's designed by Ryan Sheckler? So that they can convince the parents who've heard of this big name that Woodward is a legit experience worth spending $1,500 a week for. That's why. They want to use his name so that they can sell you the camp. It just seems so disingenuous. It's like they have us in mind, but not really. Another thing Powder seems to do differently is hire their staff. So I actually applied to Woodward in 2019. That was the last time I went, the last time I worked there. And it was like, the application process was like a little bit harder than it was the first time I worked there in 2016, but not much. But I viewed the application process back in January, and they want like 3 years of experience working with kids, which honestly, it makes a lot of sense. You want to make sure that your staff is well acquainted with kids, but they prioritize this over having people who genuinely care about skating come and work with their kids. So a lot of the staff these days seem to be basically just babysitters more than people who actually like care about teaching skateboarding and spreading what it's all about. That being said, if I was 13, I would still want to go to that camp, and I'd probably still have a great time and be unable to view any of these problems I view now as a 22-year-old. Maybe it's because I've sort of grown up and out of like wanting to be a camper there, where like if I were to attend now, I would be an employee, and the only peers I would have would be like some of the staff. And Woodward is an experience definitely made for kids. And when you're there as a camper, it's probably always gonna be fun. And I'm sure that, I hope that some of these like problems that I'm pointing out in this video eventually get like reverted and changed back. But I had some of the best memories at this camp. I remember one of the craziest times was in 2016 when I worked at Woodward West. The cabin that I stayed in, Cater Silla pretty much like slept like right above me. And he was like so much less known than he is right now. I also met Alex Midler that year. It was the first time I ever filmed with a pro skater. Yeah, I mean, it was just like a fantastic time. And like, that's the type of thing that'll probably only happen at Woodward. Even regardless of how they run the camp, experiences like that can still happen. So I pretty much made this video because Woodward was such a big part of my life, and I really enjoyed the way that it like used to be and that I remember being it. And I want it to always be that way. I don't want like 10 years from now, people are just like, oh, Woodward is so bad now. Nobody wants to go anymore. It costs $3,000 a week to go and it sucks. That is like a vision of that I have that could just end up happening. And I would hate to see that. I want to see Woodward thrive again. So I actually got a lot of this information I used in this video from a podcast that I'm going to link in the description below. So no, I don't think anyone wants to cancel Woodward. I just think it's a funny little Instagram page. And yeah, I hope you guys like this video. See you guys on the next one. Peace out, mates.